There comes a moment in every person's life when silence becomes deafening, a moment when your reflection no longer lies for you, when the excuses no longer soothe you, when the comfort becomes suffocating. It's in that moment you realize something most never do. You're not stuck because of your circumstances. You're stuck because of your standards. Most people live their lives trapped, not by chains, not by injustice, not even by failure, but by acceptance. They accept a life that's slightly better than miserable. They accept habits that poison their potential. They accept jobs that drain their soul, relationships that numb their spirit, dreams that decay on paper, because somewhere deep inside, they lowered their standard, and they forgot that life gives you what you tolerate. You don't get what you want. You don't get what you wish for. You get what you demand from yourself, what you refuse to live without. Look around at the people you admire, the titans, the disruptors, the legends. They didn't rise because they were lucky. They rose because mediocrity made them sick. They looked around at average and said, "Not me. Not now. Not ever." Think of Edison. He didn't stop because he failed 10,000 times. He refused to accept a world without electric light. That was his standard, to illuminate the world, and nothing below that would do. Think of Oprah, abused, rejected, fired, and still she rose. Because somewhere inside her she decided, "I will not be defined by where I come from. I will be defined by where I refuse to stay." That's what raising your standards does. It bends the world to your will. You see, standards are not goals. Goals are optional. Standards are the floor, your minimum. And if your minimum is low, your life will reflect it. Not because the world is cruel, but because you are passive. You didn't get what you deserved. You got what you were willing to accept. So let me ask you something. What are you currently tolerating? The late mornings that kill your momentum? The self-doubt that lives rent-free in your mind? The comfort zone disguised as stability? The people who clap for your potential but never call out your excuses? Every bit of it, every ounce, is either pulling you forward or pinning you down. And your standards are the filter that decides which one it will be. You don't change your life by changing your circumstances first. You change your life by changing your identity. And identity is built from standards. Do you hold yourself like someone who is becoming something great, or like someone waiting for something to happen? Because here's the raw truth. You are not entitled to greatness, but you are capable of it the moment you demand it from yourself. When you raise your standards, your habits change. When you raise your standards, your circle shifts. When you raise your standards, your language transforms. Your body walks differently. Your mind thinks in outcomes, not obstacles. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop entertaining excuses. You stop celebrating average. That's why most people never rise. Not because they don't have the talent, but because they're still trying to build a legendary life on broken foundations. You can't expect to fly if your standards are grounded. The person who changes the world doesn't ask for permission. They decide who they are. They declare their standard, and the world has no choice but to adjust. So stop hoping your life will get better and start expecting more from yourself. Because the world will meet you at the level of your demand, not your dreams. You must become the kind of person who makes excellence their default, who treats every day like it matters, who trains their mind like it's sacred ground, who surrounds themselves with people who challenge, not comfort. Discipline becomes devotion, work becomes worship, and failure becomes feedback, not defeat. Do not wait until you feel ready. Raise your standard, and let your feelings catch up. Because elevation doesn't wait for emotions. You've already survived enough. Now it's time to build. You will never change your destiny until you change what you demand from your days. And that begins with what you tolerate in silence. Because every time you say, it's fine, when it's not, every time you say, I'll start tomorrow, when now is begging for your attention, every time you shrink to fit inside a room your soul has outgrown, you train your mind to betray your greatness. Listen carefully. You are not your environment. You are not your excuses. You are not the failures of your past. But if you don't raise your standards, you will become them. You will mirror what you surround yourself with. And most people surround themselves with mediocrity, dressed up as normal. But greatness is not normal. Discipline is not normal. Sacrificing now for a future no one else can see is not normal. But that's the point. You weren't born to blend in. You were born to lead, but only if you act like it. You see, raising your standard doesn't start on the outside. It's not about the car or the clothes or the followers. It begins in private. It begins when no one's watching. When the alarm goes off and you rise, not because you feel like it, but because that's who you are now. It begins when you stop chasing motivation and start mastering commitment. It begins when you say, I no longer eat the food that drains me. I no longer scroll mindlessly when I could be sharpening my mind. I no longer keep relationships that dull my purpose. I no longer let my dreams sit in a notebook. I execute, I build, and I rise because I refuse to sink. You are not born average. You are trained to accept average. And now it's your responsibility to unlearn every single lie. The lie that says you have time. The lie that says good enough is enough. The lie that says it's okay to settle if everyone else does too. You weren't born to live the same year 80 times and call it a life. You weren't made to work for a paycheck and die with your potential buried. Your standard must be higher than your surroundings, because if it isn't, the world will swallow your ambition whole. Raise it. Raise it until your habits offend people. Raise it until your schedule demands sacrifice. Raise it until your vision scares you. Raise it until your life becomes a warning for those who settle and a model for those who refuse. That's what the greats did. Andrew Carnegie didn't wait for someone to give him permission. He rewrote the rules of an industry by outlasting everyone. Henry Ford wasn't trying to build a faster horse. He raised the standard of transportation, and he did it by believing what others couldn't even imagine. Walt Disney got fired from a newspaper because they said he had no imagination. He didn't lower his standard to their opinion. He built a world where imagination was currency. He saw castles where others saw fields. That's the power of an unshakable standard. And you're no different. You don't need permission. You don't need the perfect plan. You need a decision. A sacred, permanent, non-negotiable decision that from this moment forward, your life will be a reflection of your potential, not your past. This is not about perfection. This is about progress with power. It's about being honest enough to say, I've let too much slide, but not anymore. Because you don't rise by accident. You rise by design. You rise by choice. And every choice you make is casting a vote for the future you're building or avoiding. So what will it be? Will you keep playing small in a life built for giants? Or will you raise your standard until the ground you walk on trembles with purpose? It starts with the smallest, quietest moments. Not the applause, not the achievement, but the instant you decide, in solitude, that who you used to be is no longer welcome in the room you're walking into, and you don't need to scream it. You don't need to prove it. You live it. 'Cause when you raise your standard, you stop arguing with reality. You stop blaming, complaining, delaying. You take ownership so complete, so radical, so honest, that it burns the bridges to your old self. And in the smoke of that fire, your real life begins. You stop negotiating with laziness. You stop debating with fear. You stop lying to yourself just to sleep better at night. And in that place, that uncomfortable, sacred place, you meet the version of you that's been waiting this whole time. Not the version buried under guilt and distractions. Not the watered-down edition made for approval, but the you that was carved for purpose, forged in friction, built to withstand storms. Because, let me tell you something the world won't. If your standards don't scare you, they're too low. If your circle isn't stretching you, you're shrinking. If your daily life doesn't reflect discipline, intensity, purpose, you've chosen comfort over calling. And that price, it's too high. There's no trophy for fitting in. There's no legacy built on being liked. History remembers the ones who stood up, stood out, and stood firm, not the ones who played it safe in the shade of potential. You want to rise? Raise your energy. Raise your urgency. Raise your identity. Because the world responds to how you see yourself. If you walk like a leader, talk like a builder, think like a warrior, the world reflects it. But if you shrink, hesitate, play small, the world will gladly agree. Okay, that's who you are. Your life is always listening, and it speaks in results, not reasons. You've been tricked into thinking you need more motivation. You don't. You need standards that leave no room for weakness, not because you hate yourself, but because you love the future so deeply, you refuse to betray it with mediocrity. So start cutting. Cut the excuses, cut the distractions, cut the noise, and then build. Build the habits, build the rituals, build the identity of someone who refuses to lose to an old version of themselves. 'Cause until you raise your standard, you'll always be living in the shadow of your could-have been. And that's a slow death. That's a quiet erosion of the soul. But when you raise your standard, you live loud. You live free. You live on fire. Not because life is perfect, but because you've decided it's worth it. And here's the beautiful irony. When you stop settling for less, you start attracting more. Better people, better opportunities, better results. Because life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you vibrate. And when you vibrate at the level of excellence, you start receiving at the level of excellence. This isn't magic. It's alignment. You want more, become more. That's the law. That's the game. That's the truth. And it starts right now. Right now, while the world sleeps in indifference. You wake up to intention. Right now, while others hit snooze on their future, you rise to claim yours. Right now, while most people build excuses, you build your edge. Because the difference between the life you live and the life you want isn't luck. It's standards. It's how high you're willing to aim, and how low you're no longer willing to sink. It's found in the mirror, not the marketplace. It's in the questions you ask yourself before bed. It's in the promises you make when no one's clapping. It's in how fiercely you protect your time, your energy, your purpose. People think raising your standards is about making life harder. No, it's about making your future unshakable. When you expect more from yourself, the world starts expecting more from you. And when the world expects more from you, you deliver at levels most can't even imagine. That's why the greats don't live by feelings. They live by principles. They don't chase motivation. They manufacture it with discipline, with repetition, with obsession. Because here's the truth you've always felt in your bones. There's another level. There's always another level. But you don't reach that level by working harder. You reach it by becoming the kind of person who belongs there. Let that sink in. You don't get a better life. You build a better self. And that self creates the life you desire. It's not about getting the raise. It's about becoming the person who commands it. It's not about getting respect. It's about becoming the person who earns it with silence and certainty. It's not about being successful. It's about feeling worthy of that success because your actions match your ambition. So stop asking for the next opportunity and start training like it's already on its way. Stop chasing success and start creating the gravity that pulls it toward you. Your standard must be so clear, so unbreakable that anything less feels like betrayal. And that might mean you have to walk alone. That might mean cutting ties with who you were. That might mean losing people who loved your past but fear your future. Let them go, because you don't raise your standards to impress others. You raise them to meet yourself, the real you, the highest version of you, the one who's been whispering all along. You are meant for more. That voice never left. You just stopped listening, so listen now. Not with your ears, but with your actions. Start showing up with the energy of a champion. Start dressing, thinking, behaving like the person your future needs you to be. Start saying no to anything that doesn't match your vision. No guilt, no apology. Because anything that doesn't grow you slows you. This isn't about pressure, it's about precision. Because precision builds empires. And empires don't rise from comfort zones. They rise from intention, from integrity, from impossible standards made real through daily execution. You want peace? Raise your standards. You want freedom? Raise your standards. You want fire in your soul, purpose in your step, and heaven in your legacy? You already know the answer. Raise your damn standards. And don't look back. And don't just raise them once. Raise them every day. Because greatness isn't a peak you climb once and coast forever. It's a decision you recommit to, morning after morning, breath after breath. You don't just arrive, you become. Every action is a vote. Every decision is a declaration. Every moment is an opportunity to say, this is who I am now. So the real question is not, what do you want? The real question is, what are you no longer willing to tolerate? Are you done tolerating excuses that sound smart but lead nowhere? Are you done tolerating friends who feed your weakness but never your strength? Are you done tolerating a routine that drains you, numbs you, breaks you? Because until you answer that question with action, you'll keep reliving the same year, hoping the calendar will do the work your character refuses to. And let me be blunt, the world will not slow down for you. Life will not wait for you to get ready. Time will not ask if you're comfortable. But if you raise your standards, life will listen. Doors will open, resistance will yield, and the weight of your past will begin to fall away, not because it disappeared, but because you got stronger. Look at every champion, every icon you admire. They weren't always the best, but they decided to operate at a level most people wouldn't even try to reach. Serena Williams didn't just hit balls, she hit limits. Muhammad Ali didn't just train, he declared he was the greatest, and then became it. Nelson Mandela didn't just sit in prison, he forged identity through suffering. They didn't wait for the world to crown them, they crowned themselves through standards no one else could survive. You don't need to be born special. You need to behave like you were born for something bigger. So raise your mental standard, how you speak to yourself when it's hard. Raise your emotional standard, what you're willing to feel and still move forward. Raise your spiritual standard, what you'll stand for even when no one's watching. And above all, raise your personal standard, what it means to be you. Because if the version of you right now doesn't scare your past self, you're still too comfortable. Let the world adjust to your rise. Let your old story collapse under the pressure of your new discipline. Let your past whisper doubts, and let your future scream, "Watch me." You weren't built to coast. You weren't made to tiptoe through life hoping for validation. You are here to lead, to create, to move mountains, break limits, and carve your name into history. But not as a fluke, not as a lucky break, as a standard. When people see you, they should feel your presence before your words. When they watch you work, they should understand. This is someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't fold, doesn't fake it. This is someone who has burned their plan B, who stares failure in the eye and smiles, because they've already decided to rise. And no storm, no setback, no critic can pull down a person who has built their foundation on unshakable standards. This is what freedom looks like. Not doing what you want, but becoming someone who demands excellence. From themselves first. That's the key. It's never been out there. It's always been you. And now, finally, you're ready to claim it. Once you raise your standard, you stop chasing comfort and start training for war. Because life, real life, doesn't hand out rewards for participation. It doesn't honor good intentions. It crowns the disciplined, the ones who show up when it's raining, when it's lonely, when it's painful, the ones who keep their word even when no one's checking, the ones who do what needs to be done, not when they feel like it, but until it's finished. That's what separates the powerful from the pitiful, the legendary from the forgotten. Discipline is the bridge between standards and results. It's the hammer that forges your identity. It's the quiet oath you take every morning when the alarm goes off and you rise anyway, not because the bed isn't warm, but because the mission is burning brighter than your comfort. Let this be your truth. You will not be ruled by emotion. You will not be dragged by doubt. You will not let laziness disguise itself as self-care. Because true self-care is building a self you can be proud of, a self that can be trusted under pressure, a self that doesn't collapse when life hits hard. And it will hit hard. Your standard must not just survive chaos, it must thrive in it. Adaptability is the quiet twin of discipline. It's the muscle that allows you to bend, but never break. When your plan falls apart, and it will, your standard is what holds the line. You pivot, you adjust, you evolve, but you never drop below the level of who you've chosen to become. Because when you're locked in on a higher standard, setbacks aren't threats, they're teachers. Pain isn't punishment, it's data. Failure isn't fatal, it's fuel. That's how you armor your mind. That's how you rise when others fall. Not by being lucky, not by avoiding storms, but by building a foundation so strong that even the winds of life bow in your direction. Resilience isn't a gift, it's a standard. And like all standards, it's trained. Day by day, choice by choice. It's trained when you keep going after the rejection. It's trained when you smile through the discipline. It's trained when you refuse to be another statistic. You become bulletproof not by escaping adversity, but by confronting it so often that it forgets how to scare you. So, what will you do today that challenges your old identity? What will you break in yourself so something new can be born? Because the truth is, every time you raise your standard, a part of you dies. The lazy part, the weak part, the distracted, doubtful, average part. And that's a death worth celebrating, because it means a new self has taken the throne. The disciplined you, the decisive you, the relentless, adaptable, unstoppable you. You don't need a guarantee. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You need to move, with power, with poise, with purpose. And let the world feel it. Because once you move with the conviction of someone who knows who they are, the world responds in kind. Doors open, fear dissolves, Obstacles shrink. Not because they're easier, but because you're stronger. And that's the secret. You don't wait to feel ready. You raise your standard and let your body, your mind, your spirit rise to meet it. Because once your standards rise, so does your clarity. You no longer wander. You no longer ask permission. You no longer confuse movement with meaning. You walk with vision, not just goals, because goals are what you want, but vision. Vision is who you're becoming. It lives in the silence between steps. It pulses through your breath when you're tired, but not done. It whispers to you when no one's watching. Keep going. This is who you are now. Clarity is power. It cuts through distraction like a blade. It simplifies chaos. It realigns you when life tries to pull you into the noise. When you raise your standard, you stop doing 20 things halfway and start doing one thing like your life depends on it. Because it does. Your vision deserves more than a half effort. Your future deserves more than good intentions. It deserves obsession, not in a reckless way, but in the sacred way. The way a mother is obsessed with her child's safety. The way a builder is obsessed with the integrity of his foundation. The way a warrior is obsessed with showing up for battle, no matter the odds. Your vision must become sacred. That means you protect it from doubt. You protect it from distractions. You protect it from the low standards of others who want to pull you back down. And you walk, every day, toward it. Not sprint, not panic, just walk with fire in your bones. 'Cause when you walk with vision, even the ground beneath you becomes more stable. Not because it changed, but because you did. And here's the secret weapon of those who truly rise. They are grateful, not for what they have, but for who they're becoming. They don't wait for a milestone to feel joy. They don't wait for applause to feel worthy. They understand that gratitude is not weakness. It's fuel. You can be on fire and grateful at the same time. You can want more while loving what is. You can be unsatisfied, but still honor the journey. That's what separates the grinders from the builders. Grinders wear pain like a badge. Builders wear clarity like a crown. So raise your standard, and then bless it. Be grateful that you even get to rise. Be grateful for the ability to choose a higher path. Be grateful that you're not who you used to be, even if you're not yet who you will become. Because when you lead with gratitude, discipline becomes a gift, challenge becomes a teacher, and pain becomes purpose. You'll no longer need the validation of the world. You'll no longer crave the quick win or the easy applause. You'll no longer live on borrowed confidence. Instead, you'll walk like a storm in silence. You'll carry your standard like a torch. And everywhere you go, people will feel something shift. Not because you tried to be impressive, but because you became inevitable. You were always meant to rise. But it's only when your standards demand it that the world steps aside and lets you. So let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them scoff at your discipline, your clarity, your hunger. Because they won't recognize you soon. You won't look the same. You won't think the same. You won't be the same. And one day, they'll ask you how you did it. And you'll smile, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty, and say, I raised my standards, and I never lowered them again.